Welcome to For the Love of Licking County, a podcast where we bring you everything on leadership, entrepreneurship, and community impact. Presented by the Licking County Chamber of Commerce. I'm your host, Jamie Wright of Wright Auto Insurance. We're coming to you from right here in Newark, Ohio.
Whether you're a job seeker or a business with staffing needs, Ohio Means Jobs Licking County is here for you. Our center is fully equipped and expertly staffed to help you with your employment and workforce needs. Stop in and see us at 998 East Main Street in Newark or call us at 740-670-8700.
Welcome back to For the Love of Licking County. I am your host, Jamie Wright of Wright Auto Insurance. And today, I just want to take a second. Today is episode 16, and today marks the 1-year anniversary of the show.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I know. I'm so excited.
Love it.
I just wanted to, last March was our very first episode 1 recording. Like I said, this is episode 16. It's been so much fun. I'm thrilled to be able to continue to bring you so many amazing guests, and we continue to grow. I'm pumped for today's show, in case you didn't know. Rachel Williamson of Running Great Stores, welcome. Thank you for driving all the way here to be with me today.
I will tell you that there couldn't be a better way to spend my morning
Aww.
today. So thank you for the invite.
Yeah, I'm super happy that you're here. So I do want to take the time to just read your short bio, because I want to introduce you to the people that listen to this show. They might not have met you before.
Bring it on.
Rachel Williamson has spent 30 years in retail, most recently as the Vice President of Store Operations North America for a multi-billion-dollar retailer. She has worked for iconic brands and honed her skills as a retail expert. Rachel is the founder and chief strategic retail advisor for Running Great Stores, a retail consulting firm focused on guiding retail brands on their journey to operating excellency in the brick and mortar space. In 2021, Rachel launched a digital retail playbook that is helping small retailers run operationally excellent stores. I love how you use the word excellent so much, and you use it through your website as well. And it's going to come up a little bit here in the show. So I just wanted to point that out. But please explain this a little bit. Just get a little bit in depth with us. Tell us about your company, kind of what you do, who you serve, and kind of who you are.
That's awesome. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Jamie. Thank you
Yeah.
for reading my little bio. I will say that my goal in life was to be a lawyer. I was going to be a prosecuting attorney.
Really?
You can see how the best laid plans actually play out. So I graduated from high school very young. I was 16, and I was like, well, if I want to be a lawyer, it's 7 years of college, so I need to get moving. But I had to pay my own way through school, unlike my daughter, who had a lovely little college fund, thanks to all those wonderful brands that gave me an opportunity to work with them. And quite frankly, working your way through college is a super hard thing to do. But what happened was I got a job in retail because I did have a little affinity for clothing, and shop for Papagallo. Who remembers it in the 80s? Super preppy, all the monograms, the little button bags with the monogram on it. You had to keep changing it to match your outfit. The pants with the whales embroidered. The listeners are getting my vibe. They're like, oh, totally remember. Wish that store was still around. But I worked there, and I actually realized I was super good at retail. And so I worked there for a couple years, saving up money before I started at Ohio State, and I really got bitten by the bug. And you know what retail is? It's the job that you do until the job you think you should be doing. Okay. It is, for most people, an accidental career.
Okay.
I have a colleague in the business, Ron Thurston. Hi, Ron, who is traveling across the United States right now in one of those big Twinkie buses, telling people's retail stories. So if you've been in retail, you either were intentional about it or you were accidental. For me, it was very accidental. Mm-hmm. So started with working for very small retailers, mom and pop brands, if you will. I think that's where my affinity for small brands comes from. And then made the leap into really big brands, Gap, Ann Taylor, Bath & Body Works, Victoria's Secret, Limited 2, Justice, were really the brands that I've spent my career working at. I started on the stores side of things. I was an assistant manager, a store manager, area manager, district manager, moved into a regional role, and then made the jump over to a corporate role and said, these nincompoops that send directions out to stores, have never worked in a store in their life, apparently. I'm going to switch over to the corporate side, and I'm going to provide stores with what they actually need to do their job, to be operationally excellent, and to drive amazing customer experiences. Because I felt like I knew what they needed, and most just weren't getting it. So switched over to store operations. That was limited too, and I loved it so much. And so it was just bizarrely different than anything I had ever done. And I had an amazing team, and I did all, I got to work on events and figure out all the scheduling for stores. I mean, we had 580 stores at Limited 2, then Limited 2 and Justice merged, and now I have 1,000 stores. And it was just amazing to be able to apply my knowledge of stores from spending so many years in it, and then being able to apply that and become a operations team that provided stores with what they needed to be really good at what they did. And we did, and we grew the brand and multi-billion dollars, and it was pretty remarkable. So I felt really good, like I made the right move. So funny side story.
I love funny side stories, by the way.
Working on a project. We were going to open stores in Canada, Justice stores, and I was working with the corporate attorneys. And I looked up at her, and she was quite a dear friend from just at work. I looked up at her and said, "Oh my gosh, I have just had this aha moment. I really hate the work you have to do." And I realized for that moment, I was in my 40s, I was so glad I never became a lawyer.
Wow.
And how bizarre is that? Because I had spent my life going, I wonder if I should have been a lawyer. Like I could have made more money, or I could have done whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I had this weird aha moment that I absolutely loved what I chose to do, even though it wasn't what I thought I was going to do, even though it was accidental. And I loved it. And I love retail. I'm so in love with the profession, and love that I get to do this every day. And so I'm one of those diehard retailers.
Hey, girl. There's nothing wrong with that.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. That's a really good story, though.
Crazy.
I think that's a good story for people to hear that maybe don't know with the space that they're in right now, or they're thinking like, am I going to make a career out of this?
That's right.
I mean, insurance. I've been in insurance for 20 years, and I got into it accidentally.
There you go.
Yeah, and it's not something that you wake up and you're like, I want to be an insurance agent today. And most of us would say the same thing too.
But look at the impact you have on people.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to start something new.
I love it.
So talk to us a little bit about running great stores, and kind of what your mission is there.
Okay, I'll do that. So everyone in retail knows, everybody listening knows this happens, right? There's just this circular event that happens in retail because there's always a disruption. We think COVID was like such a big disruption, and it was.
Yeah.
But every decade has brought an interruption in retail that has caused retailers to reset, right? It's why retail brands that we grew up with aren't here anymore. So think about Gold Circle, think about Rinks, think about Hearts, think about Big Bear, think about Lazarus. I'm just calling out brands in the central Ohio area that if you're in this area, you remember those brands. Where'd they go? Why'd they just be here one day and gone the next, right? And the reason is because there's always a disruption that resets retailers, and only the strong survive. So in 2019, I was working at Ascena Retail Group, who was the parent company of Justice and Ann Taylor and Loft and Lane Bryant, all these wonderful brands. And I had been moved into a role as the Vice President of Transformation from Justice, and I was like, let's do this. Like, I can help get this company out of these woes they're having, and what have you. Like, bring it on. Let me get after it. And what I realized was it was far bigger than Rachel, like far bigger, right? And so while I learned a ton, I finally said farewell, and so grateful for everything that Ascena did for me. But layoffs were happening, and while I wasn't on the list, I kind of wanted to be. I was ready. So they were very kind and very generous, and I decided that I would just say goodbye to working in corporate retail. And I woke up the next day, literally the next day, with this title, Running Great Stores, in my head, like tattooed on my head, right? Went right to my computer, and looked it up, GoDaddy.com. It's available. I buy it. No idea what I'm going to do with it, but I buy it. I don't know, a day later, I start building a website.
Wow.
I have no idea what I'm going to do with it.
Wow.
Start building a website. Now I'm blogging and I'm writing all these articles about retail and how to run great stores and all this stuff. And everyone is saying to me, how are you going to monetize this? Like what? I mean, at some point you're going to have to make a living, right? At some point, but you know what I was doing is I was building this bridge while I was walking across it.
Yeah.
And after someone who had spent so many years having to make sure everything was ticked and tied to ensure stores had what they needed to be really successful, it was kind of freeing and kind of cool to not worry that it wasn't perfect, to just do what felt right in that moment and see where it led. And that's what I did. And I don't know, 7 months into it, I got a call from someone who I'd worked with, and they were like, look, I work for this company and they want to hire you as a consultant. Do you do that? I'm like, of course I do that. Good, send us a contract. You bet.
Right.
And I did. I sent him a contract. Thank goodness for online legal stuff that you can do, right? And frankly, it was like the beginning of running great stores.
Wow.
So had the title, had the website, had a lot of content, and didn't know where it would go until out of the blue, someone decided, I'll tell you what you're going to do with it. You're going to be a consultant. And so I consulted for a huge, I mean, it's like you wish you get clients this big, right, out of the gate. And so it was awesome. And I was starting to be able to tell people, yeah, I guess who my client is, right? Because it was well known and what have you. And that became another client. And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I had been documenting all this content of how you run a store, whether it was the best interview questions to ask if you're hiring a store manager, an assistant, a key holder, a sales associate. I was just getting everything out of my head and down on paper. It was a Word document that was over 200 pages long in a size 10 font. I was starting to tell people about it, and they were like, I mean, what do you think? Someone's going to read that? No one's ever going to read it. So maybe just write a book. So I started writing a book, and I talked to some publishers, and they're like, it's really narrow. Like, no one's going to buy this. I'm like, okay. So I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to keep going the consulting path and see what happens. And net is that I ended up just getting more and more clients, and then hired a web developer, Summerfield Consulting or Summerfield Advertising. Hi, Andrew. They're awesome. And they upgraded my website for me, and we started podcasting and all this cool stuff. And he said, we can make this totally digital. So we started building out what a digital platform would look like so that small stores, big stores could all have right at their fingertips all the operational things that you need to do day in and day out to run your store. And so launched it. People started wanting to use it. Yarmer Steiner was like the first one to buy it, a guy that owns Easton Town Center. Hi, Yarmer. And we used it for one of the businesses he has there. And then another retailer wanted it, another, and it's just been a snowball effect. And all these retailers are using the Running Great Stores retail playbook.
Wow.
And they're feeling super excited that they can hire a manager and everything they need to run that store amazingly is right at their fingertips.
At their fingertips.
Yep, it's on the laptop, it's on their mobile device, it's on their cash register, it's wherever they want it to be.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's just a subscription. So it's super cool. So that's the Running Great Stores story. I've got consulting on one side, I've got the retail playbook on the other. I have an awesome team that helps me behind the scenes bring all this to life. And yeah. So cool. I'm so grateful.
That's really inspiring.
Oh,
so like
you.
we hadn't met before today. We made like a 15-minute conversation and I had no idea the story of how you got started. And that's amazing.
It is. It's like, if you can dream it, you can do it, right? That's the Walt Disney's famous quote. I'm a big quotes person, so I always loved it. I remember using it in trainings and things throughout my career. And then I literally said to my husband one day, if you can dream it, you can do it. Like, the whole quote is, if you can dream it, you can do it. All this was started by a mouse. That's the actual Walt Disney quote. And yeah, so this, wherever it leads, wherever it goes, it goes.
Yeah.
But it's the funnest journey ever. I mean, I would encourage everybody listening, if there's something you want to do, you've got to just do it.
Do it. I'm happy you
right?
said that because I was gonna play on that.
You've
But
got to just do it.
that's amazing.
I mean, because you have to keep saying to yourself, what is the worst thing
Right.
that could happen right
Right.
now? So what is it? What would it be? I'd go back and work at a company
Right.
that owns retail.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing. Or whatever. What's the worst thing?
Yeah.
There's really nothing that bad that can happen. So, let's just
I love
enjoy
that.
the journey.
That's so, yes. Amen,
Yeah,
sister.
right?
Well, let me get to today's topic. That kind of blew me away. That was really awesome. So today's topic is actually kind of like spring cleaning your business. And when Amelia from the marketing director of the Licking County Chamber of Commerce and I talked about kind of like we wanted an episode like this for the springtime and what would that look like, she was over the moon about getting you in here. I mean, you know her professionally and personally. And she's like, listen, she's got this amazing like post peak cleaning checklist. And you did this post about it and it was wonderful. And I printed it off and it's fantastic. It's fantastic. It's literally a checklist of things in retail space, in the brick and mortar space that you can spring clean. So obviously, though, there are so many great things that you could do as a business owner to physically clean your space. And I think that that's really, really important. And an owner, a leader, a manager, but I also think it's really kind of important to spring clean our mindset. And when I talked to Amelia about this, I said, and learning about you, I said, I think that she'd be fantastic to kind of talk about this point because you have your hands in so many things and you're aware of so many things and you're educated in so many different things. And I thought, we're coming out of a pandemic and how many things have changed? Our procedures, our policies, how we work, where we work, all of those things have changed. But I do think that it's really important and it's a great time just in listening to this show. I think it's really important to spring clean or check your mindset personally and professionally. Now, you have this wonderful piece around success mindset. So I want to give you the floor. I want you to talk to us about what success mindset is. How do we use a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset? So take it away.
Perfect, Jamie. This is a great topic, and I actually did some free webinars throughout COVID to help businesses, and they had all different names. But basically, it was my partner and I said, if we can do one thing during COVID, it's to help people keep their mind clean.
Yeah.
It's to keep our minds in the right place because people were getting pulled into a really dark place, right? It was very frightening.
So I think, yeah.
And so success mindset is all about how we think about our world, our roles, the impact we have on other people. And sometimes, tell me if this has ever happened to you, you start off insanely positive going into the week, and then something happens, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute. What am I doing? Am I even doing the right stuff? Like, should I be doing something? And all of a sudden doubt and fear starts to kind of move into your space and starts to push out all of the positivity and all of the confidence and motivation and on all those things, right? It's happened to all of us. I mean, I've had weeks where I'll start off like so pumped about what my day is like, what my week is like. And then by the time my husband comes home from work, he's like, what happened to you today?
Yeah.
You're saying, should I still be doing this? He's like, what do you mean? What happened to Rachel this morning? And so we have to keep ourselves in check. And, we do that by having people around us who encourage us and who can be honest with us and who can be supportive of us. But in its simplest forms, let's just talk about what you mentioned, fixed and growth.
Yeah.
A fixed mindset, it says, this is all I can do. It's all I've ever done. I don't have this. I don't have that. I can't do it. Like, I could fail. And if I fail, I'm a failure. That's fixed, right? It's you believe what you have is all you will have. You believe that all you've done is all you'll ever do, right? It's I'm stuck or I'm fixed where I am. And on the flip side, a growth mindset says, I'm not sure what tomorrow is, but I'm going to have as much fun as I can today. And I'm going to, if I'm not sure how to do something, I'm going to ask someone.
Yeah.
I'm going to say to myself, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'm going to read things that inspire me. I'm going to watch things that inspire me. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to eat right. I'm going to do those things that make me growing every day.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where that growth idea comes from. And a growth mindset is, it's not that I'm never going to get discouraged again, or I'm never going to need someone to pick me up and carry me along if I get down. It's that I can recognize it when it happens, and I can call those lifelines, and I can get right back on that right track. I do not want to just sit here and pretend like it's all rainbows and unicorns, because that is so fake and phony,
Yep.
and I just can't do that. And so I will say that having a growth mindset doesn't mean you'll never again doubt yourself, or you'll never again wonder if you're doing the right things. Of course we will. We're human. But it does say, when I say I'm going to be growth oriented, I am going to think about the possibilities. I'm going to embrace walking across a bridge while it's being built, right? Before it's done. And I'm going to embrace the art of the possible. Mm-hmm. That's how I like to think about it for me. Does that make sense?
I love the visual, the building the bridge as you're walking across it. I love that. And I mean, I think this all kind of translates back into everything that you want is on the other side of fear.
Yeah.
Right. And kind of walking over the bridge and what
right.
that leads to. And I think that's such a positive message for people right now too. I think everybody's focus is really off.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to focus. And like for me, like if I'm busy in one area, I'm hyper focused in it, and everything else is just kind of like whatever.
Fades away.
But when I'm not super busy in one area, I kind of dip into everything that I'm involved in. And then sometimes the lines get blurry. And so I really think that just having this positive mentality, this positive piece, and I'd love for people to write it down too, like what's the worst thing that could happen?
That's right.
And really what that means for you. Just kind of living in this moment of anxiety. I think that we're all trying to translate back into what it used to be like, right?
Yeah.
I love it so much.
But here's the thing. Do we really want to go back to what
Right.
it used to be like?
Right.
Because I don't
Right.
know if I want to.
I agree with this.
I mean, I don't want to minimize what COVID has been.
Sure.
The loss of loved ones, and we've all had that. I have a cousin who died of COVID, and very close, right? So I don't want to minimize, but we learned a ton.
Yeah.
I think companies have learned
Yes.
a lot about how they need to treat their internal customer, i.e. their employees. And I think that reset has been so important. I think we've all learned the importance of family, the importance of togetherness. We've learned that it isn't all beginning and end on online, even for shopping, right? What we learned, everyone said during the beginning of COVID when retail was closed, brick and mortar is dead, and that's it. And I was like, it is not. What is wrong with you? What are you taking? Like, stop it. It is not. Because we love the idea of getting up, getting dressed, and going shopping, whether it's by ourselves to get away, or whether it's I love to shop with my daughter. It's something we've done since she was a little girl, and it's just our thing. And, people go shopping and go out to dinner with best friends and with spouses and with significant others and what have you. We are social beings, and I think it reiterated that. But I think we also learned that we're quite resilient, and we can get through quite a lot. And so I love the things that I personally learned through COVID, and I don't know if I would want to lose those learnings. I think those have been good. I'll call out 3 things that successful people do and talk about jotting something down if you're not in your car driving when you listen to this.
Just rewatch.
Exactly. Just rewatch, replay. And the first thing that successful people really do is they envision a positive result for their future actions. So what would that be like for me for running great stores? It was, I'm going to be like a super successful retail consultant that helps retailers who don't have the experience or the knowledge or what have you that I got to have working for really big retailers. I'm going to bring that to them. And I'm going to scale it down to this pint-sized version that a pint-sized business needs, or I'll be able to scale it all the way up. So I was envisioning what a positive outcome of my business would be like. So I think that's the first thing. I want everyone to really envision a positive result for their future actions. If we're going to think negative, it's going to be negative. If we're going to think positive, it's going to be positive. The end. Number two, successful people fight negative self-talk. And you know what I'm talking about here, right?
Oh,
you
I'm
know
so
that
bad at
negative
this, yes.
self-talk. Yeah, yeah, we all are. And they also fight those limiting beliefs or those fixed beliefs, right? And then the third thing successful people do is they take inspired action. They don't just take action. They take inspired action. And what is inspired action? It's what is inspiring me to do what I love to do. So for me, it's about helping retailers. It was never about how much money could I make. It was never about how big would I be. It was never about how many clients will I have. It was about every client that I touch, I want to help them make their retail business better. I want them to see the art of the possible.
That's the why.
That's the why.
Yeah.
You know it when you're doing this during COVID. Guess what? You got lots of retail business, lots of businesses who, and I did a ton of pro bono work.
Yeah.
Because their businesses were closed. They had no money coming in. They
Right.
had no money to pay me. Fine, no problem. Let's just figure out how to pivot your retail business. I mean, my sister owns a retail store in Granville, right on the main drag, called Green Velvet. And I remember her calling me when the governor said all stores had to close, and she didn't sell, milk and bread and antibacterials
Right.
products. Like she wasn't going to be able to stay open. She's like, I just got all this product in for spring. I have all these bills mounting. I have to close. I'm going to go bankrupt. I'm like, oh, stop it. You're not going bankrupt. Like, quit the drama. And Elizabeth, if you're listening to this, don't be mad at me for sharing it. But immediately, like, I don't know, I think it was that day or the next day, driving out to Granville, putting on my little mask, walking into her store, locking the door, and we like sat on the floor in there and like talked about what are we going to do different? What are all the things? And she pivoted her business and she did it quickly. And her business today is better than it's ever been. It's so amazing.
Yep.
And I love it. And she wouldn't undo COVID for her because what COVID did for her was it forced her to think differently about survival, not even about success. She just didn't want to lose her store. She loves it, and she has invested everything she has. And it's something that my parents started with her, and they've since passed away, so she feels an obligation almost to their legacy on keeping Green Velvet alive, and she's got customers who love her and love the brand and love what she brings to Granville and to Central Ohio. So it's, you've got to take inspired action. She did that, but she had to push herself through those limiting beliefs that I don't have a website. I can't just pivot. And I remember saying to me, people can't just go online and buy. I'm like, no, but you got a car and you can deliver to people's front doorsteps. And you can do live video in Green Velvet and show them how pretty it looks for Easter, even though they didn't get to see it. And we can make Easter baskets. And we can say, here's a girl Easter basket and a boy Easter basket and a mommy and a sister and a whatever. And we did. And we were making Easter baskets like crazy. And I was delivering them too. I was in New Albany, dropping them off at people's doorsteps. And they were, paying over the phone. Like, why couldn't you? You don't need a website for that. You just need to get engaged. And were you working longer hours? Yeah, but she's always worked a ton. And it was crazy. So a lot of retailers were doing that. And I loved helping retailers do that. And so that's that inspired action, right?
Well, this is a circle back, too, to the power of positivity.
Absolutely.
I mean,
that's right.
Everybody needs a Rachel in their life, a positive person in their life to say, you need to stop. And we're going to be fine and everything's going to be fine and we're going to figure out how to do this.
And it's not I did a case study on Green Velvet and published it. So I was like, all this stuff that I was doing for people pro bono, well, obviously for my sister, she's my sister. But all of that really helped me hone what offerings were the right offerings. So it was like, it's all good. Yeah. It's all good.
We're all learning
right?
here.
And when you're not doing it for money, when you're doing it to help other people, the outcome is far greater than if your whole mind was, well, I'm not going to make money doing it that way. Well, don't worry about it because you'll figure out it's all, when you do the right stuff happens back to you. So,
and that will be the moral of today.
Yeah, there you go.
And so just kind of moving on from that.
Yeah.
Another thing that you're really invested in is customer experience excellence. Love it. Again, the word excellence. The customer first mindset. We're getting back to this customer first mindset thing, this design thinking. Explain to us how we move the needle.
Yeah. Well, I think that, so we talked about we're going to clean our own minds, right? And so that's like step one as we think about spring cleaning our business. Now, step two, spring cleaning our business, is going to be focusing on your customer. So design thinking, we'll do the really easy version description of that. And design thinking is really about using empathy to evaluate and assess your customer's pain points. So there were pain points all through COVID where, do you remember when stores reopened and customers were waiting outside because they were metering the number of people who could walk in?
Oh, yeah.
Well, if it was pouring rain or suffocating hot, those were pain points for those customers. But were they willing to do it because they wanted to shop? Yes. So when you walked in the door, what did the customer have to be? I might need to offer a sealed water. I offered them a wipe. I, tried to create a great experience, what have you. And so customer first, whatever industry you're in, obviously I lean into retail and what that looks like, but understanding what the customer's pain points are as it relates to your business is vital. So let me give you an example. Many times, and I've sat in the boardroom and I've had these conversations as a corporate executive, and we come up with all these great ideas. This is our strategy for the year, and we're going to break it down by quarter. And we're all looking at each other and we're like, we are so excited about this. And then all of a sudden, after quarterly briefing after quarterly briefing where none of these projects were getting done and nothing was moving the needle, we said to each other, I don't remember if the first person was who brought it up. Does our customer care about this? Do they care about any of the strategies that we're focused on right now? Does it solve for a single pain point that a customer has when she is shopping for her daughter in our stores? And it was like, just this thing. And so we got some training on design thinking. The Garage Group from Cincinnati came in, and they trained us on it. And it was mind-blowing to really understand it. And we learned how to map all these pain points out and what to do with them. And when the end of the day was, once you understand their pain points, it helps you filter through the job that needs to be done, right? That's what you really need to be focused on. And so there was this 180-degree shift that happened in our business, and I've used it ever since, even with clients. I use this all the time. That just says, is what I'm focused on for my business solving pain points that my customers have? Now, it may not be the only thing that you should be working on for your business. You might have to upgrade technology or what have you. But do you understand what your customer experience is when they come into your business, whether it's retail, insurance, whatever it is? What are those pain points? And then let's get after those and let's focus on that. And that is really a customer first mentality.
How do you get there? Like, what is it that you do? How do you ask your customers?
You have to talk to customers. Yeah, you've got to talk to them.
So that can be different for everybody.
That's right.
Figure out how to do that, but you really need to ask your clients.
That's right. I mean, examples. You can pick up the phone and call customers who you know. You can email them. You can text them. You can send a survey. I think there's a little bit of survey fatigue, but your best customers probably want to tell you what they think of your business and what they think you could do better. It doesn't mean you have to do everything they say. It just means you want to understand what your customer's perspective is. Yeah. And then say, I wonder if we need to be shifting gears to be focused on what would resolve some of these pain points and actually bring to life some of the things our customers are asking us for. Yeah. For me, I love to go into the retail store and talk to customers as they're shopping, talk to customers as they're exiting the store. Yeah. Those are all great ways to do it. Sometimes I'll have a stack of $5 Starbucks gift cards in my pocket and I'll say, would you answer like 2 questions for me? And they're like, yeah, what's up? Coffee. And then you're like, and by the way, thank you so much for your time. We really just want to make sure that we're understanding where you are. Now, some people might say they're reliving in their mind Henry Ford's famous quote that was like, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Yeah. So what I would encourage everybody listening to is you're not asking your customers for the silver bullet that's going to take your business to the next place. You simply want to understand what your customer experience with your business is. And what happens is it opens up this world of like, you're like, wait a minute. And so for Henry Ford, obviously, it became the car.
Car.
But what will it become for you?
Right.
Right? Like, Jamie, what would it become for you for insurance? You don't know.
Right.
You'd have to talk to customers in order to figure out. There could be something out there you haven't thought about. But these types of conversations become what I call the unlock to the next step or the next phase in your business. And it has to happen.
It has,
and we
yeah.
actually don't think about it very much.
You're right.
If you're in retail, we think about it all the time. But if there are other businesses listening, I would encourage you all have customers.
Yeah.
Whether you're in manufacturing, whether you're in insurance, whether you're in, fill in the blank on what industry or what vertical you're in.
I think that a lot of our listeners are in the service industry. And, I was just thinking while you were talking, like, it's really important to do this because then we know where to put our money.
That's right.
We know where to put our marketing money.
That's right.
We know where to put our technology.
That's right.
Like, that's probably the number one thing that we need to figure out.
I can't believe how many retailers thought just 2 years ago that having super high speed point of sale systems, cash registers, super important place to put $5 million to roll out to a chain. I was just in Nashville. Nashville's amazing. Shopping really cool brands that aren't here in Central Ohio. And one brand I was like, where are your registers? And he goes,
right here.
This is it. I'm like, your iPad? And he goes, yeah, I can ring you out right here. Here's a little credit card reader.
Yeah.
Right over here. I'm like, what's going on with that TV? He goes, we watch Friends all day. Like, it's amazing. I bought so much there.
Yeah.
Because the team was super cool.
Cool.
And I just loved how they embraced, I don't need a cash register. Now they needed a table, kind of like this beautiful table your husband built.
Thanks.
They needed this because they had to wrap the items up and put in a bag. But yeah, what we think we need may not be what we need before you spend one more penny.
Oh, that's so good.
Ask those questions.
That's so good.
So,
Rewatch, re-listen that. Take some notes.
There you go.
Moving on to the next thing. we talked briefly about employees, or you talked briefly about employees, and you coined, this wasn't your phrase, but you coined the great retention.
Yes.
Oh, I laughed. It was funny. Employees equal customer service from the success mindset, right? So everything's kind of like coming together. But one big thing that we all really need to talk about, or we are trying to have success in talking about, is how do we hold on to our associates? And you really hit the nail when you were kind of talking about this. And one note that I wrote down was adding flexibility to expectations. So important. Elaborate on that a little bit for us and the great retention.
Yeah, so you have to be living in a little cave if you haven't heard the Great Resignation, right? If you're on LinkedIn or in the newspaper or whatever, everybody's talking about the Great Resignation. And for a while, we were all like, where did everyone go?
Uh-huh.
People quit. I didn't want to go to work anymore. I need to stay home, whatever. But what they did was they went and started their own businesses. So, by the way, in case everyone wonders what the Great Resignation is about, people left and they're starting their own businesses. More entrepreneurs than ever in the United States. Pretty cool, I think. But when we think about the Great Retention, when I heard that, it really resonated with me, and I do not know who coined it. But I will say that we have got to make sure that we are creating an environment where employees want to be and they want to work. And so what does that mean? It means I do probably have to revisit some of my HR policies. Maybe we're all back to work, but maybe I need to allow my employees to work from home 1 or 2 days a week, or when it makes sense, when the repairman is coming, or when their child is home with the sniffles and they can't go to daycare. Maybe instead of requiring them to use time off, they allow them to work from home.
Yeah.
I mean, these are things that I think, as every organization that has employees, what about the niceties, right? The thank yous, the bringing breakfast once a week in for the team, the $5 Starbucks gift card with a handwritten thank you note that says, I really appreciate how you went above and beyond for that customer yesterday. Just all of those things. I travel with $5 gift cards and I give them out to people who give great service all around the city. It's like my thing. Now my husband has them in his wallet. It's so cute.
Yeah.
And he ran out of them and he said, I was somewhere and the service was amazing. And I said to myself, where's the stupid Starbucks gift card when I need it? And because how do you recognize people? But as employers, which we all are, right? We can be doing those things. And you know what? Ask them. Ask them what's meaningful. Ask your employees. The interesting thing is, it usually isn't money.
Yeah.
The interesting thing to me is, it is usually how you make me feel.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
How I feel when I leave work. How I feel when I talk about where I work. how I feel when you give me a one-on-one and you update me on how my performance is doing, right? Those are the things that make people decide I'm staying or I'm going.
Yeah.
And I talk to a lot of organizations, not just retail, and this is an opportunity that we all, kind of collectively have been identifying that probably almost every business out there could do this a little bit better. There could be some businesses out there that role model this behavior, but most of us are just kind of learning right now and learning from one another. And, take a look at what you do for your employees today. Read through all your policies and say, what could I do to really retain the team?
Yeah.
And to ensure that I am the place people want to work.
I was listening on another podcast. There was an employer, and the employer was saying, when I hire somebody, I give them a list and I ask them about the things that they like.
Nice.
Where do you like to eat? What's your favorite flower? What's your favorite color? So that way she could reward them and she could let them understand that, like, hey, I actually care about you. And then she would update it. Like every year when they did their review, she would update the things that they like, because those things can change, right? And I thought, wow, how powerful is that? And that was her, she was like, hey, I recognize that this is my job.
Yeah.
This is my job now. I have to do this in order for them to successfully carry out my dream.
That's right.
I thought that was super powerful.
I think it is. And I think ultimately, I always say this to retailers, the better you treat your store staff, the better they'll treat your customer.
Exactly.
And if you treat them really, really disrespectfully or just don't care or whatever, it'll come out, because they'll treat the customer the exact same way, because we're human. And it's hard for them to separate how I'm feeling right now with all these people that are walking into my store. And when you walk into a store and you get a kind of a not great experience, you've got to wonder how
where
is that
came
person
from.
being treated.
Yep. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Write that down.
For sure.
Now, the last piece that I wanted to dig into today is the piece about change management. And really, I just want you to retell the Ketchup Story. And we'll go from there.
The Ketchup Story is so good.
I love it.
Okay, so it is a true story, but I cannot take credit for it. I don't know where it came from. I have Googled and I can't find it. So with that said, we'll be clear, it's not the Rachel story. But let me tell you about it. So this gal got a job at McDonald's. And when you get a job at McDonald's, you go through onboarding, training. They do a really nice job, by the way. I haven't worked there, but I know people, and I'm pretty impressed with how thorough they are with the training. And so this gal was going to work like the hamburger assembly line. And so they said, okay, you take a bun, you put the patty on it, you do a squirt of ketchup, a squirt of mustard, 2 pickles, you put the bottom on, and you wrap it up. And you can just envision like this happening down the line. And this particular gal went through the training and everything was good. She did it, saw it, whatever. But as she started actually working and doing the job, she would take the bun lid, the patty, and she would do 2 squirts of ketchup, 1 squirt of mustard, 2 pickles, the bottom, and wrap it up. And the supervisor's watching, and he's like, hey, like, quick, just a reminder, it's just 1 squirt of ketchup. And she was like, okay. And she continues to work, and every time he turns around, it's 2 squirts of ketchup. He's getting super frustrated. And he tells the manager. The manager's like, okay, I'll talk to her. And the store manager talks to her and says, hey, it's 1 squirt of ketchup. She goes, okay, yeah, gotcha. And here we go, the bun, lid, the patty, 2 squirts of ketchup, a squirt of mustard, 2 pickles, bottom of the bun, wrap it up. So his district manager's in for a visit. She's not working right that day. And district manager asked about new employees, and he said, everyone's doing well. I got this one girl, I'm going to have to let her go. And he's like, well, what's going on? I mean, it's expensive to hire and train people here, so we don't just want to get rid of people for nothing. And so he explains to the district manager, we got a whole 2 squirt ketchup thing going on with this girl. The supervisors talked to her. I've talked to her. Like, she is just not willing to follow direction. So the district manager says, listen, when is she working again? I will come and I want to talk to her. So the district manager makes a trip back to the store. She's working, calls her up to the office, asks how her onboarding went. She's like, it was great. Yeah, I learned all about the franchise and all this. He's like, great, how is the on-the-job training going? Really good. You know, I shadowed someone, what have you. So the district manager says, well, I just got to ask you, like, I'm hearing that we have a whole 2-squirt ketchup situation going on here. And I just want to understand why you're doing that. Clearly, we've trained you. It's 1 squirt. And she says, I love 2 squirts of ketchup.
Yeah.
Doesn't everybody love 2 squirts of ketchup? And the district manager says, well, actually, no. And one of the reasons is because we do a very big drive-through business. And people are eating their hamburger as they're driving back to the office. And 2 squirts of ketchup has a tendency to drip down the front. Means ketchup on your tie or ketchup on your blouse or, you know, whatever you're wearing. And she goes, oh, I didn't realize that's why it was. I thought we were just too cheap to give out that extra ketchup. And so he was like, okay, so can we like 1 squirt going forward? She's like, oh yeah, absolutely. So let me just ask you, Jamie, what do you think she did when she got back to the line and started her hamburger assembly again?
1 squirt
or 2?
1 squirt of ketchup.
1. And why do you think it was 1?
Because she understood why they only did 1 squirt.
She understood the why. In fact, the district manager reminded her, we'll give as many free ketchup packets away as you want. Like,
Yeah.
we're seriously not being cheap, right?
Yeah.
And so you're absolutely right. She went back, and from then on, it was 1 squirt of ketchup, you know. So the moral of the story is we've got to ask questions, right? We've got to understand the why. And here's the phrase for everyone to remember. What I believe drives how I behave. And how I behave drives my results. What she believed to be true was that everybody loved 2 squirts of ketchup and that McDonald's was just being frugal.
Right.
That influenced her behavior, 2 squirts, which drove the end result, right? But once he understood how she believed and adjusted that belief by filling in some gaps and giving the whys, it changed her behavior, which changed the result. So what I believe drives how I behave, and how I behave drives my results. So as leaders, we have a tendency to be like, hey, look, guys, we gotta get sales up, okay? High five, everybody.
Yeah.
We're gonna get sales up.
Yep.
Well, that's nice in theory. Do they know what to do to get sales up? Are we just focused on an outcome and not the vital behaviors that get you there? And before the vital behaviors, their belief. Do they believe that we can get sales up through XYZ? Or are they listening to you and then saying to each other, well, if we had the assortment we needed in the store, we'd get sales up.
Right.
But I have no control over that assortment. They don't listen to me. And that is a very true recording that goes on in store managers' minds for sure. And so what happens if that's my belief? My behavior doesn't change and my outcome, my result doesn't change. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I mean, when I heard the Ketchup Story too, it was in terms of like change management. And I asked you about your experience with restoring projects that were troubled.
Yeah.
Or divisions and departments. And I think that this Ketchup Story really brings all of that together and everything that you were just saying. And I think everybody should really listen to this story and retell it too and try to understand it.
The story's huge. And I'll tell you where it came to life for me. I was a district manager for Bath & Body Works, and I had the Columbus area. So, of course, you've got the CEO because Bath & Body Works is based here. So everybody's always in your stores all the time. And
Right.
so everybody should always hire top talent, but it was really important for me, typically top talent. And I had one particular store at Easton, and I'm still friends with the store manager to this day. She's wonderful. And I used to go into her store, and the floor looked great, and her team was fabulous, and sales were through the roof, and conversion was great. And her back room was a disaster, like, don't ask.
No.
Young DM, I'm like, come on, I'll pitch in. I'll take my suit jacket off. We had to wear them back then. And I'll like pitch in and help you. We'll get the back room cleaned up, and that's how it'll stay from now on, right? And she'd be like, yeah, that'd be great, like awesome. And after the first couple times, she'd be like, I'm just gonna let you clean that up, and I'm gonna go back out to the floor because we're trying to make our segment. And as a stupid young DM, I was like, okay, well, what do you think I had to do every time I went into that store?
Clean it up.
Clean up her freaking back room.
Yeah.
So one day my regional manager actually shared a story very similar to the Ketchup Story. When I found the Ketchup Story, I was like, holy Toledo, this is like the other story. And she explained that story to me, and from that moment on, I actually never cleaned up her back room again. But I did ask questions that help me understand what she believed to be true about a back room. When I asked the questions, what I learned is she didn't believe the back room had any bearing. As long as the floor looked good and the team was happy and selling, it was good. So I had to pop in there unexpected all the time and be like, empty table. You're missing sales because table's empty. Why is the table empty? Because I can't find the product in my back room. Okay, why is that? Because it's a mess. Okay, so is there an impact of the back room on the sales floor and your ability to drive sales? And then she had her own aha moment of yesterday.
Of course. It's like the Monica closet from Friends. Did you ever watch that show?
Yes, I love Friends, and I know the Monica closet. Yeah.
That's funny.
They thought she might be keeping Richard in that
yes,
closet.
Yep. Oh my gosh, that's so
Richard,
funny.
if you're in there, will you slide my credit card back out? It's not a good day if you haven't had a Seinfeld or a Friends reference. I'll just say that.
I'm happy I can bring that to you. So just real quick, I just want to elaborate a little bit on change management and catch up.
Yeah.
You have used this educational piece, which you are highly educated on yourself, called the influencer. Yep. Just briefly explain what we can learn from that experience.
Yeah, I think, first of all, it's a great book. Joseph Grenny is one of the authors. His name sticks in my head for whatever reason. So I would highly recommend, if you are a people leader and you're trying to drive change in your organization, pick up a copy of it, do a ebook version of it, whatever works for you. But it's really the power of change. And so when we think about influencing other people and we think about influencing other people's behavior, there's two things you got to keep in mind. The first one is you have to have healthy and trusting relationships to be able to influence other people's behavior. So if you don't have a healthy and trusting relationship with someone, there's no
Respect.
Style in the world that's going to move the needle on that person's behavior. Okay, so let's just start there, right? Gotta have good trusting relationships. But when we think about influencing other people, we think about three things. I'm always kind of a three things gal. Did you notice that?
I like how you use your fingers, though, two or three things.
Well, Amelia taught me that with the reels. You got to do the three things. First thing, second thing. I digress. So when you're thinking about influencing other people, you really have to start with what is the end result that you are trying to get to. And you've got to make sure that it's really clear to the team is what you're trying to achieve. Then you back up another step and you say, what are the vital behaviors that are going to get me there? And then what you end up having to do in order to address those vital behaviors is you take a look at what they call a 6-source model. And the 6-source model is basically broken down like this. Let me try and paint a visual picture. There's 3 categories: personal, social, and structural. And then there's 2 sides to this grid: motivation and ability. So let's just take one. Personal motivation, personal ability. That's at the top of the box. So it's 6 boxes, right? The top 2 on the left and on the right. Personal motivation, personal ability. What am I going to love about this change? What am I going to hate about this change, right? How do I envision my world changing if I do this change? As you think through that as the person that wants to drive change, it'll bring to mind things that you should do in order to help that person be personally motivated. We can't make unmotivated people be motivated, but what we can do is we can address their concerns and give whys on how that they might change their own mind and become more personally motivated. But on the other side of personal motivation is personal ability. Do they know how to do it? So sometimes we're like, we've just got this person who's like super motivated, and everyone wants the super motivated person. Yay, that's great. But did we train them how to even do it? So if I'm motivated but I don't have the ability, is the needle going to move? No. So we need to over-invest and ensure that we are giving our people the training that they need.
Yeah.
So that's that personal box. Now in the middle, we have social motivation and social ability. Social motivation is, how do the people around us, right? Think of influencers. Where did the word influencer come from? They are social. We're social beings. Influencers are people who motivate other people to buy products, right? There's influencers I follow on Instagram.
Sure.
I need to stop because I like to click on the link and buy the item, right? So we got to watch that. But social influence, the social motivation is very similar if you just think about social media. So how do you use the people around you to motivate everybody else on the team to want to do something. And again, as you work your way through these quadrants, you're asking yourselves questions, and the book gives you questions to ask yourself, and it helps you come up with this grand list of things that you need to do to actually influence the behavior you're trying to change. And it can't just happen by, you're personally motivated, great, this is going to work. No.
Yeah.
There's a really fun video that, well, we can't really play it because we're kind of talking and whatever, but there's a really fun video out there that Joseph Grenny's son, who's a little boy, did with children and cupcakes. And so they set up this thing where these children come in and they have to put this puzzle together, like a human body puzzle, and they're all touching the pieces. And Joseph Grenny's son says something like, now I just need to tell you guys, there were some kids in here playing with this before, and they were like blowing their nose and sneezing all over it. So it might be a little germy. So you might want to like wash your hands. But when you're done with the puzzle, you get to go get a cupcake. And so it just started with that. I'm just going to tell them about it. It was gross and see what happens. Well, none of them washed their hands. None of them used the antibac. None of them cleaned their hands. Big surprise, 0 out of 12 children were influenced by that personal motivation. So then they were like, okay, we got to try another way to do this. And so they kept layering on different sources that they could try and influence these kids. And after they had pulled ideas from 4 or 5 of the 6 quadrants, 11 out of 12 children cleaned. The next group, they kept doing more and more groups, actually cleaned their hands before touching the cupcakes. And when they asked the children at the end of the video, why did you decide to do it? One was like, well, I saw the sign up that says wash your hands before taking a cupcake. And then someone else said, well, that girl said, don't forget to wash your hands. Social motivation, right?
Yes.
The sign on the wall was structural ability. Like you put a sign up and you reminded people, hey, you got to wash your hands. So the net was even these small children were all motivated differently by different things in the environment. But the end result, I want you to clean your hands before you eat that cupcake, was still achieved. So it's these 6 quadrants that it's super interesting. It's like it just takes more than wanting people to change and telling them they need to change, I guess is the moral of the story.
Yep.
There's more ways to think about it.
I'd love to expand on that. But
yeah. That might be a whole nother podcast for a whole nother day.
Let's
but
do
get
that.
the book. I mean, I think it starts with get the book or listen to the book and really familiarize yourself with what does this really mean, and then how does it apply to me as a leader who wants to influence outcomes on the other side.
It's so good.
Yeah, we can't just tell people to change, right? We've got to think about that human component. So yeah.
Well, before we wrap up, and we'll put this in with the post too, but tell us where people can find you. What's your website?
They can find me at runninggreatstores.com.
Okay.
I'm also on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and they can Facebook. They can find me all those fun places.
Well, and definitely look up her website because it's wonderful. It's full of a ton of great resources. One thing that I ask all my guests.
Yes.
What is your biggest life hack?
My biggest life
Now,
hack?
mine's the Kroger Click List app because it saves me 2 hours of my life every week.
Yeah, I can't use that. I think they're going to give me the wiltiest lettuce and the oldest milk. Everything's going to be expired. I have no trust. It's so bad.
See?
Well, this is going to feel lame, but it's in the moment, on the spot. I love that my dry cleaning is picked up and delivered.
See?
Yeah, Rockwood Cleaners.
Yep.
They are amazing. Everything looks like brand new. Like I
That's
just bought
perfect.
it and I love it.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
I'm
Get your dry
hoping that
cleaning
everybody
delivered.
just like writes down everybody's life hacks so
That's
they can
right.
take them on themselves.
That's right. Just do it.
Thank you so much for being here. This was a fantastic show. There's so much information in this show. I really would urge you to rewatch it, re-listen on Apple Podcast if you don't have time to watch. Take some notes. This is all wonderful for people that are in a professional service industry, retail, but also personally. I think this is a huge takeaway personally too. I mean, how you can apply this to your family and your goals. Thank you to everyone that's joined us the past year. This has been an amazing experience. I'm super excited to keep going on with this. And we're super excited for what's to come. So make sure you join us next month. And until then, stay safe.